What is something about yourself that sounds totally made up, but is 100% real? I was once sponsored by the Crunk Energy Drink Company for sailing. I imagine I was the only sailor on their list. I literally just emailed them saying that I sailed and asked if they wanted me to put stickers on my boat. They sent me a few cases of the drink, t-shirts, hats, the works. My car was known as the Crunk Mobile. That's badass. I saw the former Prime Minister of Poland in his underwear. That's not how the rhyme goes. I was at a store when Tony Hawk was signing autographs. I was only 10 at the time and was a huge fan. One of his early video games had just come out. The store had a couple TVs on the wall and some video games to play. Being a kid, I waited for one controller to open up and someone leave. A kid ended up leaving and I grabbed the controller and started playing and minding my own business. A couple minutes later, the store wanted to grab photos of Tony playing his own video game. He came over and grabbed the second controller and began to play multiplayer with me. Probably played for 10 minutes. The bonus was it was also my 10th birthday. So I played Tony Hawk Pro Skater with Tony Hawk. Nice try sneaking that BS in at the end. We all know you were turning 11. Once in college, I applied for a job at the library help desk. I figured I would help people find books. Didn't give it much more thought than that. During the interview, I aced all of the customer service questions. Then they asked me whether I knew how to defrag a hard drive. Cue alarm bells in my head, but I kept calm outwardly and said no, but you can teach me. I worked in it for 3 years by accident. They were too nice to fire me. I made my last boss swear on her life she wouldn't call me for tech support. They call my cell when I'm sick in bed and ask how to reinstall the printer not a dang week later. I took my mother for a surprise trip to New York City. She got married to my father there in '68. The surprise was manufactured by way of telling her we were going to Australia. We live in New Zealand, so a trip to Australia is not a huge deal. It's the type of thing you could do for the weekend. And therefore she packed a bag and brought her passport. We got to the airport and said, "Surprise. We are going to New York," and she cried her eyes out with delight when we arrived on our first morning. I said, "Okay, what do you want to do?" She said, "When I was last here, in 1968, the Twin Towers weren't complete, so I'd like to go to the top of them." "Your wish is my command," I said, and off we went to the WTC. That was the afternoon of September 10th, 2001. Suffice it to say, there was a particular poignancy when we looked out the window at around 8 AM the next morning. Wish you could see my chills. My ex and I were having a huge argument in a hotel parking lot. My friend and ex's dad were there as witnesses. 2 big buses pulled up, and Justin Bieber got off one of them with a security guard and walked right past us. I was crying, and my ex was yelling at me, and JB said, and I quote, "Hey, stop that." My ex yelled back at him, "White PPL shouldn't have dreads," and Justin just got onto the other bus his guard. My friend was cracking up saying, "Was that Justin Bieber?" And sure enough, some people in his entourage, or whatever, were staying at that hotel, and he was in town that night for a concert. TLDR, Justin Bieber told my ex to stop yelling at me, and then my ex yelled at him. This is the best one yet. I once won a $500 raffle during a routine visit to my local tea shop. It was the building's annual Black Friday event, and there were 5 baskets with varying amounts of goods, services, and coupons. I needed tea, so my only stop was the tea shop. It cost me $20 to film items, but they said raffle tickets were given out after a $25 purchase. I said fuck it, and got a hot tea for me, and the woman in line behind me entered with that one ticket. I got a call a few days later saying I won the top prize basket. When I went to claim, they asked about my purchases. I told them, and they said the drawings had over 1,000 tickets and many people had over a dozen entries. The raffle prize included $25 to the tea shop. I once won an expensive blanket in a raffle at work. The raffle was for charity and they bugged me to enter, so I bought one $1 ticket, while all the older work ladies bought 5 or 10, because they really wanted the blanket. I was the only person at the department store who only bought one ticket. This was in the early 90s, and I was only making $4.10 an hour 20 to 25 hours a week, and that dollar came out of my gas money. The day of the drawing I sat in the break room, and as I passed by the blanket I thought, I better not forget to take that home tonight. I snorted in disbelief at the silly thought, and went off to do work. A couple hours later I was informed that I had won the blanket, and yes, I was freaked out, and yes, I remembered to take it home. A pelican engulfed my head with its massive fucking beak when I was a small child. Pelicans are cunts. Pelicans. When I was a kid, I woke up to find my cat giving birth to her kittens on my pillow, 1 inch from my face. I took it as a compliment. It totally is. That's like the Cat Congressional Medal of Honor. I was baptized by a serial killer. Well, you can't just bloody leave us at that, man. I've been stabbed 8 times. Edit. This is a fairly new account, so I'm prepared to identify myself. http://www.scotlandjudiciary.org.uk/8/2139/HMAV Fernando Carrasco dos Santos and Ruben Goncalves Semido Korea. http://www.google.com/am/www.eveningtelegraph.co.uk/fp/ I am a bit of a mess Dundonian left with PTSD and blind in one eye by knife thugs and attempted murder. r@perth/amp/. Edit. I didn't get the chance to tell my story in court as they pled guilty before I was called. I was drunk, and I came out the pub I was in to get some fresh air. I walked past 3 guys, and one of them asked me for a cigarette. I told him I don't smoke, and he became immediately aggressive. I argued with him for a while, and his friends started shouting at me and threatening me. At this point he kind of disappeared behind me. One of the others showed me a knife, so I turned and walked away. I knew they were following me as was walking back to the pub. I had a bus stop on my left hand side and a building on my right. I looked up and saw the first guy walking towards me. It was fight or flight, and I had nowhere to fly to, so I decided that attack was the best form of defense. I think I managed 1 punch before the 3 of them jumped me. They had been robbing and beating up people all over town for about 2 weeks beforehand. Please tell me it has nothing to do with your username. Spent a really cool day in London with Christian Slater and his mum. His mum is adorable. Christian Slater is adorable as well. My grandpa left his royal status to marry my grandma. I once successfully ran an unfunded shelter for 100 homeless veterans as a homeless civilian. I got hernia by sneezing too hard. I got mine trying to match my wife's pregnant belly pop. I once drove a locomotive backwards through the Canadian Rockies. My grandfather got a reward from Mussolini in 1935. He was just born with 6.3 kilograms, 13 pounds 14.2 ounces, and was awarded the award of Italy's biggest baby. Edit. Wow, I didn't expected it to blow this way. Thanks for the silver/u/6 sandwich. Also, since some people asked, my great-grandma also worked as a cleaning lady one day before he was born. He was born December 24th, and she worked until December 23rd of that year. And if you think my grandpa was big, recently a baby was born in India with 6.7 kilograms. 14.77 pounds, and the world record was for another Italian baby, born in 1955 with flippin' 10.2 kilograms, 22 lb 8 ounces. My grandfather's birthday was on the 20th of April like Hitler. He really liked that as a child in Nazi Germany, since he had the day off on his birthday and could celebrate instead of going to school, since the Führer birthday was a national holiday. I cannot see 3D effects in movies or games. I didn't know that until a friend showed me his new Nintendo 3DS, and I asked him whether this thing was a scam, because it didn't look any different to me than a normal DS. We had a fight over this, because we both thought the other one was bullshitting him. You're holding it wrong. How the fuck do you not see this? Are you fucking kidding me right now? There's nothing 3D about this thing. I'm blind. Many online commenters think that I'm lying. If I wanna lie, I would rather tell everyone that I'm a rich traveler. I had my tongue surgically enhanced for more reach and flexibility when I was 8. Edit. I'm super jazzed by how many of us are out there. Interesting. I've never met anyone that has had their tongue clipped. Had mine done as a toddler and I guess they sort of overshot the mark because I ended up with a Gene Simmons style. My great-great-grandfather was a Pinkerton detective, acted on vaudeville, and had 5 wives in 2 different states that knew nothing of each other. He also slightly changed his last name each time and never got caught until Ancestry website happened lol. Sounds a bit like my great-grandfather. He had a wife in France and then 2 in the US in neighboring counties. He was caught though. My great-grandmother was wife-2. She found out about wife-3 and divorced him. No one knew about the first wife in France until I pulled his service records from WWI. At age 50 odd, and with limited to no video game experience, my mother completed Mario 64 before I did, in about half the time it finally took me to do it. My brother is 31, I'm 19, and when he was born his grandmother, we don't share the same father, bought him a Northeasts. My mother, not knowing what to do with it, turned it on and played Super Mario Bros. She spent 2 months every day trying to beat the game, even buying a strategy guide to go through it. She beat the game and never touched a video game again. Arrested and spent 3 days in a holding cell for a crime that I didn't commit, about a year after the whole matter was done and dusted with. Mind you, I say didn't commit the crime, but I was involved in the story from start to finish. I have photophytodermatitis, which is a big fancy word for I can't get acidic juices, lemons, limes, apples, oranges, etc. on my skin and go out in the sun. Turns my skin brown like a rash. Doesn't hurt or itch, just discoloration. Happened 3 or 4 times in my life. I was born 12 weeks early and was nearly born earlier. My mom had a weak uterus from endo, so they had to push me back and stitch her up. The doctors told my parents to expect me to be unable to breathe, walk, etc. on my own. The doctor performing the C-section nearly dropped in surprise at how hard I was screaming and flailing. I do have a few health problems, but it could have been much worse. Editing since others are mentioning their experiences and health issues. I had hydrocephalus. It was treated poorly. The doctor thought I was fine, and my parents were overreacting. When I was seizing and turning colors, it was treated, and now had 6 feet of tubing in the form of a shunt, as well as seizures I'll never outgrow. They are treated with medication. Otherwise, outside asthma and other smaller things, I live a normal life. I graduated high school a few years ago, and hope to be married soon. Edit 2. Thank you everyone for your stories. TBH, I'm a bit overwhelmed. I didn't expect my comment to blow up like this. I'm going to do my best to respond to everyone, but I apologize in advance if I don't. I promise I'm reading every comment, and they all mean so much. I just imagine that baby screams translate to, put me back fuckers. You did it once, you can do it again. When my mom was in grad school she took several labs where she worked with cadavers. Because my dad worked nights she often had to take me to class with her, and she'd usually just plonk me down on the table with the cadaver while she worked on it. One of my ancestors was dumb and bought one of Napoleon's door knobs. It turns out it's fake. Door knobs were invented after Napoleon died. I'm intrigued by the fact that this is the story that your family decided to pass on from one generation to the next far enough to lose track of the relation and just refer to the subject as ancestor. I'm one of very few people outside WW1 to live through mustard gas. So rare to doctors. 1995, no internet. Had no idea how to treat me. I won 2 TV game shows. The $10,000 Pyramid won $10,300 in 1975, and Sale of the Century was on the show for 9 days, $34K in cash and prizes in 85. Nice. I've never won anything in my life. I've had a headache since August 2015, and I will probably have it for the rest of my life. It's only on half my head. So I got that going for me, which is nice. http www.nines.ne.gov/disorders/ /all-disorders/hemicrania-continue-information-page. Me too. Also since August of 2015. That's when I had a craniotomy to remove half a brain tumor. I've had a constant headache, right eye blindness, no feeling, and minor paralysis on the right side of my head. But if you touch the right side of my head just the right way, even though there is no feeling to the head, it tickles my butt. IDK how it works. I've literally never been sick, or at least never showed symptoms of being sick. No colds, no fevers, no viruses, no flu even. I really don't know what it's like to be sick or get sick, and frankly, I hope I never do. It'd sure be ironic if the first time I got sick was now. Edit. I'm 30 years old by the way. That was probably worth mentioning. Worked during the summer at some kind of hotel/summer camp for people from Eastern Europe, and one of my colleagues, the cook, found a wounded crow, healed it and then trained it. The bird would sit on her shoulder when she was cooking, would come to her on command, and would share cigarettes with her, also while cooking. I cannot taste any salt whatsoever. Edit. For people asking, it's a brain thing. Food tastes bland. Salted chips taste plain. And I've not had any British food. Edit 2. I can still taste other spices and herbs. No IDK what cum tastes like. Sorry to put you on blast dude, but that's weird. Salt water just tastes bad. MSG and other sodium based things just make me gag. Getting on sparks, Overwatch, etc. doesn't help, but I can smell the salt. I was almost named Storm because I was born at 3 AM in the middle of massive tornado storm. One touchdown actually a few minutes after I was born. I was also essentially dead. Docs thought they were going to lose both me and my mom, but somehow I lived bitches. I sneeze when I think of sex. Every single time. My wife likes to give me shit if I just sneeze innocently. She thinks she's a riot. Now your wife gets turned in by people sneezing. Reverse card. My family ancestry can be traced back to a court jester who served in the court of King Jacob IV of Sweden. Whenever someone calls you a fool, you're just carrying on the legacy. I ran out of gas outside of La Paz, Bolivia. Luckily it was downhill for about 6 kilometers into the city. I coasted the whole way on my motorbike, past buses and drifted into a gas station. Never missed a beat. Sounds like you saved a liter of fuel to me. I have won an actual WWE match. Edit. For everyone that is asking, I did not have a stage name. It was a one-time deal. It was during the 2006 tribute to the troops. The guy I faced was Chris Masters. Proof. Obviously I'm the dude in uniform. My hair is not as beautiful as it is now. It was short because I was in the army. My dad grew up with Shawn Michaels IDK, if that's how he spells his first name or not. I found out my father wasn't my biological father in 10th grade biology class. We were learning about blood types and traits. I raised my hand thinking I was a smartass. Your chart isn't accurate. My dad has AB negative and I'm O positive. My teacher said, I think your mom has some explaining to do. And we all chuckled. Turned out, he was not my father. I lost my heel in a lawnmower accident. Edit. Here's the story. I was 4 at the time. And I won't say who exactly did it. But he was mowing. And it was a riding mower and the hitch on the back where you can hook a little trailer. I loved to stand on that part and ride. Well, this time I saw a frog in the grass. And being the 4-year-old I was at the time, I jumped off the mower and onto the grass and put my hands over the frog to catch it. And he didn't realize I had jumped off and he backed up. I bought a guitar amp from Brad Whitford of Aerosmith when I was 17. He and Steven Tyler served up cheeseburgers for me and my friends. Edit. As requested. So, Brad's son was a punk, and I knew him from the scene. I was in a band that had some small local marginal success. This is 97 over 98 in Boston. I needed a new amp for our first US tour, but had very little money. I was getting drunk with his son, and, on a whim, I asked him if his dad had any amps laying around that he didn't need. We laughed and carried on partying. The next day, I get a call at my home. It was Mr. Whitford himself. He was super nice, but to the point. My son says you got a band and need a good rig for your Les Paul. I have something in mind for you. Just gotta have my guy get it from the warehouse. Come by my house in Norwell this weekend and check it out. That was the gist of the call. Obviously, the whole band came with me and ROD. We get to his house and it's totally him. So weird. These guys were like gods in Boston. I wasn't the hugest fan, but knew him from his work with Wayne's World. He takes me to one of his garage or garages where there is this cool full stack. The brand is Bedrock, an old company from New Hampshire that made good quality amps in the 80s. This one was custom made for Brad. Basically Marshall components for tubes. All the knobs go to 11. Not kidding. Still has the property of Aerosmith stickers on it. He plugs it in and rips a crazy solo on his Les Paul and then hands it to me and I play a couple power chords. He asks for $300 for the whole thing. I pay him and he tells his son to give us a tour of the house. This is where shit gets nuts. It's just like you expect. Tons of gold records, platinum records, pictures of him with people like John Lennon, Robert De Niro and Joey Ramone. Then we get to see his studio and the largest collection of Mars Hall amps in the world. Seriously, like 200 cabs, a wall of guitars. Guitars so pretty and amps so cool, it made sense for him to find the one he sold me dispensable. After the house tour, he told us to meet him at the little bar and grill they own in town. When we get there early, and he arrives 30 minutes later with Mathafik and Steven Tyler in tow. You guys the punk group. He was so nice. They went in the back and came out with burgers for us all on the house. Then they straight up left. Irish goodnight. Even. I still have the amp. I used it on the road for almost 10 years in 5 bands. Now, it's just a conversation piece. But it still works. I'll crank her up every now and then. Edit 2. Pics. Link.